All right, well, hey everybody, welcome to Brook Church. Really good to have you with us today at all of our campuses and to those of you watching online as well. If you're at some of our campuses this weekend, you'll notice that there's some dividers in different places, and I just wanted to explain that to you. You know, we regathered on August 15th and 16th, and when we did that, we did RSVPs. We said, tell us you're coming, but that didn't work because some people said that 10 people were coming, and then 2 people ended up coming, and so we were well below capacity, and so we had to ditch that. And then on the second week, we said, okay, we're gonna fill up to capacity, and then we're gonna have to just turn people away or ask them to come to a different service. And that just didn't sit right with me. I mean, I hope you hear my heart on this. I just was getting emails from the week before, and people were going, man, you have no idea what being in church did for my soul and my spirit. And I'm reading the story in the Gospels where these little kids wanna come to Jesus, and some of the disciples are kinda uptight, and they're like, no. And Jesus said, let the little kids come to me. And I just kept having that phrase play in my mind of if people want to come to church, you got to figure out a way for them to be able to come to church. And so during this season, we've tried to innovate with all of the restrictions and guidelines that are placed upon churches right now. We've been trying to be creative and think of ways that we can innovate. And one of our board members said, well, you have these large rooms, but what if you section them off into, different sections? Could you have 250 in each section? And it was one of those ideas that originally we were like, I don't think so. But then I had an opportunity to be connected with a lawyer who understands the guidelines given to churches better than anyone in the state of Minnesota. And he said that is a legitimate interpretation. And so moving forward, we're gonna be sectioning off our rooms, which means you're gonna come in the same entrance, you're gonna exit the same entrance that you came in. And for lack of a better term, there's no cross-pollination between the two groups. So this group is completely separated from this group over here. By the way, this is not something we're hiding. We've reached out to the governor's office about this. We've sent this plan and proposal over. We've actually found out that there are other churches in the state of Minnesota that have been doing this previously, so we weren't all that innovative at all. Which makes sense to me because I could never figure out how Lino Lakes, this 21-seat auditorium, could have the same number of people as Spring Lake Park when it was 4 times the size of Spring Lake Park. Now, just so you know, we'll still be doing social distancing. We'll still have a touchless experience for you. And so if you're a person who's watching online and you just feel more comfortable with that, that's great. There's a reason why we do online church. But if you're a person who's been viewing online and there's something in you going, man, I need to get to church. And you're going other places, you're going to grocery stores and Home Depots and restaurants, but haven't made a decision to come to church, I'm telling you, the people who come say, I feel very safe. I feel like it's a great environment and it's a place where your soul can grow and be connected to your Creator. So I want to invite you, we will have a seat for you. In fact, in the coming months, as these sections fill up, and they will fill up, we'll have overflow seating, and when that's full, we're gonna add service times. Because when you go through a season like this, you go back to who you are as a church and what your values are, and we've always said we are not letting buildings get in the way of reaching people for Christ. We're never letting building capacity get in the way of a person who wants to grow in their faith and come to Christ, and that's how we'll be moving forward into the future. All right, I wanna show you a picture of the Booze Bar in Knapp, Wisconsin. I had to look up where Knapp, Wisconsin was. It's about 45, 50 minutes from Hudson, Woodbury area. But as you can see, they're watching the Eaglebrook service from the week before. And this came across my inbox and I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. Like this is in Knapp, Wisconsin at the Booze Bar. Turns out the owner of the bar and a friend during the shelter and home season was feeling the lack of community. And so when that lifted for them, they started this thing called supper and a sermon. So they serve dinner, there's no alcohol, they serve dinner, and then they take in the Eaglebrook service. And there's about 30 to 50 people that come to this thing, some of whom previously were not attending church. And so you just think, boy, how our church is gonna make it in the season and the world we're living in, and I'm telling you, the church will prevail. And so I wanna welcome those of you at the Booze Bar in Knapp, Wisconsin. Words I never anticipated would be coming out of my mouth, right? We welcome Woodbury and now we're welcoming the Booze Bar as well. So, all right, today we are beginning a new series. It's called Your Future Self Will Thank You. There's a book by the same title by author Drew Dick. It's a great book, you should pick it up. But here's the question I wanna begin with. Is there a decision that you made 10 years ago that you are benefiting from today? Is there a habit that you started, a temptation that you resisted, a decision that you made maybe 5, 10 years ago, and today you look back and you go, thank you. I am so grateful for that decision in my life. I'm reaping the benefits of it now. I want you to apply that same logic to your future self. 10 years from now, is there a decision that you could make today? Is there a habit that you could start today? Is there a temptation that you need to resist today that 5-10 years from now, you will look back and you will thank yourself for making that decision? That's what this series is all about. Today's message is titled Habits. What are the habits that you need to begin today that your future self will thank you for tomorrow? A few weeks ago, my wife sent me this picture. She said, "You know what kind of bird this is?" She was sitting out on our deck reading, and this bird, not kidding, landed on the railing a few feet from her, and it just stayed there the entire afternoon. I looked it up, and it's an albino pigeon. It's a rare bird. Oftentimes they're domesticated and they're released at weddings and funerals. Some of them are racing pigeons. So they get taken out to like Grand Rapids and then they're raced down to St. Paul and there's a designated finishing point. Turns out this pigeon was a racing pigeon. Clearly he didn't win the race, right? He took a pit stop on my deck for too long. But people bet on this. So it's like a secret society that I never even knew existed. But I noticed that there was a tag on his leg, and so against my better judgment, I let my kids feed and give water to this pigeon. So we just put the food out on the deck, had the pigeon sitting there. He could come over, get whatever food he wants. The sock is not for him to eat. It's just laying there. It's just normal kind of stuff with kids. But we put this food out there, and it was kind of fun. It was like having a free pet. My kids have always wanted a pet. I'm like, no, too much work, not gonna pay the money for it. And this guy just showed up and he was free. My neighbor nicknamed him Honey. My daughter nicknamed him Snowball. Because when he would sleep, he would curl up and he kind of looked like a snowball. And he would sleep on a light that was attached off of our deck. Here's the light, and he would sleep up here every night. So we'd walk out to like our screen porch and be like, oh, there's a pigeon sleeping right there. You could get within a foot of him. And it was really great except for one problem. Snowball pooped every 5 minutes. I would walk out in the morning and look under that light and I'd be like, oh, you just defiled my deck. And so I'd clean it up and then the next day it was the same thing. And so I thought, I gotta get rid of the pooping pigeon. I called the DNR, they sent me to a website, and the website said you have to throw a towel over the pigeon, constrain him, and read the number that's on his tag. I thought, you have got to be kidding me. I walked out with the towel, and this pigeon, I mean, he's a smart pigeon, because when he saw me, he looked over, he's like, oh, the old towel routine again, huh? He jumped under the chairs, he was under the table, I could not get close to him. Finally, I just chased him off the deck. He went flying through the clearing. I came inside, I told my wife, I said, he ain't coming back. I mean, he was moving, he's gone. Except I came out that night and there he was on the light, sleeping away on my deck again. I'm like, I can't get rid of this guy. Now the story ends when we found someone on Facebook who captures pigeons and returns them to their owner. Apparently this is a side hustle if you need one, to be a pigeon catcher. But here's what I noticed about this pigeon. He always came back to my deck. I don't know how, I don't know why, but his instincts habitually brought him back to my deck no matter how hard I tried to get rid of him. Some of us have habits in our life that we have been trying to get rid of for years. We chase them away, we try to pray them away, we wish them away, we will them away, we try really, really hard. But for some reason, our instincts habitually bring us back to that behavior. Even though it might defile relationships, it might defile our job or our future or career. For some reason, we can't seem to get rid of that habit. The Bible talks about this phenomenon in kind of graphic terms. It says, as a dog returns to its vomit, so a fool repeats his foolishness. What do you call something that somebody repeats? Well, that's a habit. Why would someone repeat foolishness? Because they're in the habit of doing it. I've had habits in my life that I knew were destructive. I knew they were foolish, but for some reason, I couldn't seem to get rid of that behavior. In fact, think about an average day in your life for just a moment. You wake up in the morning and your alarm goes off. Are you gonna hit the snooze, or are you gonna get up and do something productive? It probably depends on what you're in the habit of doing. Then you're walking out for school or work, you're gonna grab a donut for breakfast or a healthier option. You probably have a habit. When you get cut off in the car on the way to work, do you scream and yell at the person, or you just kind of let it go? Probably depends on what you're in the habit of doing. When you get to work, do you Snapchat friends, surf the web, say that you're working from home, but you're not really working from home? Or do you try to get your hardest work done first? Probably depends on what you're in the habit of doing. When other people gossip, do you join in? When your boss makes a decision that you disagree with, do you tell everybody your thoughts? When someone does something and you just lose your temper because they said something that you disagree with, it probably depends on what you're in the habit of doing. In fact, if we could review video footage of our days, what you would not see is somebody attentively navigating and making thought out decisions. What you would see is a person who operates largely out of habit. Duke University did a study where they found that about 40% of our actions are habits. They're not thought out decisions, they're simply habits in our life. Now think about how that might apply for you for just a moment. Some people are in the habit of going to church on the weekend. It's almost a miracle in some cases. I mean, they got 4 kids. Somehow they get the 4 kids' faces wiped. They've each got 2 shoes and 2 socks, or at least maybe 3 out of the 4, right? You're doing pretty good if you get 3 out of the 4. The kids have pants on. I mean, come on, at least they got some pants. And they somehow get to church on time. Other people aren't in the habit of going to church on the weekend. And it takes an immense amount of brain power and willpower for them to come. So first of all, they have to decide if they're gonna come in the first place. And they're like, I don't know, I'm kind of tired. I don't really feel like going. And then they got to set their alarm clock in some cases. And then they've got to tell their kids that they're going to church, and their kids might not be used to that. And so now they're pushing back. And then they got to punch the church address into their GPS, and they've got to navigate the parking lot and check in their kids. I mean, if I was having a stressful week, I wouldn't have the brain power to pull that off. But I don't have to, because I'm in a habit. Author Sean Covey says it this way. He says, our habits will make us or break us. We become what we repeatedly do. And this is where things get interesting, because if I were to ask all of you, hey, what's one habit that you want to start in your life this year? I'd hear the same answers from every single person. A group of you would say, I want to start to eat healthier. I mean, nobody's gonna be like, I wanna eat Sour Patch Kids every single day. I've been trying for years, I just can't make the habit happen. No one would say that. Some people would say, you know what, I wanna be financially free. I wanna set a budget, I wanna stick to that budget. Some people would talk about reading the Bible every day and getting closer to God. You might talk about not losing your temper or spending more time with your kids. We would all have the same goals. Why is it then that some people are able to establish healthy habits and others are not? In his book, Atomic Habits, James Clear says this. He says, goals don't determine success. This is so critical. Goals don't determine success, because I've been to seminars and conferences where they say, hey, get your idea board out, get your resolution journal, start to write down what your goals are for this year. And I get all excited and I write them down. I close that journal and I'm like, man, I am gonna be so fit and so spiritual. I mean, whoa, man, this next year. And then, like a pigeon returning to my deck, I simply go back to my old habits. It's because goals don't determine success. He says systems determine success. You don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. So you can set a goal this year and say, I wanna lose 20 pounds. I wanna get more organized. I wanna balance the budget and stick to the budget. You can set those kinds of goals in your life. But if you don't address the systems that have led to those bad habits in the first place, then you will return to the deck. You will return to the old habits. Here's what successful people do. Successful people do consistently what others do occasionally. Some people occasionally come to church, they occasionally read the Bible. Some people occasionally eat healthy, they occasionally exercise. Some people occasionally surround themselves with the right kinds of friends, but the most successful people, they do all those things too, but they do them consistently. Now you might be wondering, does the Bible have anything to say about this? I mean, you're quoting Atomic Habits and all this book. Does the Bible have anything to say? As a matter of fact, it does. Last year, I became interested in this idea that we become what we repeat. And so I started to study the Bible looking for this idea of habits. And I want to show you a few of these verses. Hebrews chapter 10. Let us not give up meeting together as some are in the habit of doing. Meeting together, gathering together, it's a habit. You're either in the habit or you're not. Daniel chapter 6 says, but when Daniel learned that the law had been signed, by the way, this was bad news for Daniel that this law got signed. He went home and he knelt down as usual in his upstairs room with its windows open towards Jerusalem. He prayed 3 times a day, just as he had always done, giving thanks to his God. Daniel had a habit. 3 times a day, would go to the same place at the same time, and he would pray to his God. Luke 5:16 says, but Jesus often withdrew to lonely places and prayed. He didn't do it occasionally or once in a while. He often did this. And final one, Romans 7, he says, I do things that I don't want to do. That ought to be my life verse. I do things I don't want to do. You ever felt like that? I don't want to eat this way, but I do. I don't want to lose my temper. I don't want to be so crabby and irritable, but I am. It's the story of some of our lives. We have the best intentions, but like a pigeon returning to a deck, we go back to our old habits. Now, I was talking to someone recently and they said, people who are good at habits, they love listening to messages about habits. But people who aren't good at it, they feel like a total failure. Because they just know they're gonna try and they're gonna fail and they're gonna try and they're gonna fail and they're gonna think, you know what, I've been down this road before. And I just want you to know, I've been that person. I've had times in my life where I've tried to eat healthy and I've tried to exercise and I've tried to read the Bible every day. Every example I'm gonna give to you, I have failed at it more times than not. But each of those failures got me closer to establishing that habit in my life. And I really believe today that if you don't just listen to this message, but you apply it, that you can be on your way to starting. May not always hit the mark, but you're on your way to starting to establish healthy habits. Let me give you 3 ways that you can establish healthy habits in your life. The first one is this: focus on the how and not the what. So again, most of us, we think about what do you want to do? What are the habits you want to put into your life? But that's not the most important question. Just because you set goals doesn't mean you're going to accomplish those goals. The most important question that we can ask is, how are you going to establish those habits? How is the most important question. I want to go back to Daniel for just a moment. Notice again, it says, when Daniel learned that the law had been signed. This was bad news. Let me ask you, how do you respond to bad news? Because you're going to get it at some point. You're going to be sitting in a doctor's office and the doctor's going to walk in and it's going to be bad news. You're going to get a call from your kid's teacher or a call from the police department and it's going to be bad news. You're going to get called into your boss's office and they're going to have some bad news. How are you going to respond? Probably depends on what you're in the habit of doing. Daniel had this habit of 3 times a day he would pray, and it says he knelt down as usual in his upstairs room with the windows open towards Jerusalem. In other words, he didn't just say, you know what, I want to pray more, I want to have a relationship with God. He picked a time and he picked a place. He knew he was going to be in the upstairs room by the window facing Jerusalem. He knew that 3 times a day he was gonna do this. Scholars believe that these 3 times a day were connected to meals. In other words, meals became a trigger or a cue to pray. So I'm drinking my coffee in the morning. I'm gonna read the Bible and spend some time with God. On my lunch break, I'm gonna take a walk, get some exercise. I'm just gonna pray while I do that. I'm gonna put a little devotion book by my bed and I'm gonna read a devotion before I go to sleep. That's how habits are formed. One recent study found that if you wanna exercise in the morning, you wanna go running, you should put your running shoes and your workout clothes right by your bed. That way, when you wake up in the morning, they're right there, you just put them on. Then give yourself a reward. Maybe you have your coffee when you get home. Maybe you have a running log and you get the satisfaction of writing down how many miles you ran, or you share that log with a friend. And now you get the positive affirmation of them going, dude, that was amazing. You ran 3 miles today, and you are on your way to a healthy habit. I found this to be true in my own life. The place in this world that I have lied the most, just probably confess this, is the dentist office. Every year, the dentist office would turn me into a liar because they would ask this question. They would say, do you floss? Well, technically I did. I mean, I ate some corn on the cob maybe 3 months before, and I went and got some floss to get this thing that was stuck in my teeth out. But the truth was, I never flossed regularly. And then this last year, I did something so simple. I took the dental floss out of the drawer and I set it on the vanity where I would see it. So now when I brush my teeth, I at least see the dental floss sitting there. Now, I don't always use it, but I at least see it there. And that one simple little decision, so obvious, so simple, I have flossed my teeth more this year than my whole life combined. Friends, good news for my teeth, huh? My dentist is happy about that. But here's the truth. You know what you need to do. You know the habits that you want to start. You know the goals that you have for your life. The question you need to ask is, how are you going to do it? Here's the second way to establish healthy habits. Don't expect instant results. Give yourself some grace. You know, a few years ago, I was on kind of a workout kick. I think I had lifted weights for like 2 days. That was a kick for me at that time. And so I've been lifting weights for about 2 days. And of course, I was standing in my bathroom mirror, you know, kind of checking out how things were looking. And my wife walked in. I said, hey, look, I'm getting ripped. And she looked at me and she goes, oh. That was it. I don't even know what that means. But here's the truth. You don't get ripped in 2 days. And here's why that's true. Success lags. If you start eating healthy today, it's not gonna show up on your cholesterol test next week. If you start working out today, you're not gonna see any muscle definition for at least a few months. If you say, you know what, I'm gonna stop going to Starbucks every day, and instead I'm gonna put that money towards my school loans. After about a month or two, you look at your school loans, they'll have gone from $35,500 to $35,400. And you'll go, well, I'm not even making a dent. And you will wrongly conclude that our small actions, if they're small enough, that they really don't make all that much of a difference. The opposite is also true. I mean, you could play video games for 3 hours and not get your homework done. You're not gonna fail the class by doing that. You don't have to come to church next weekend. Your life's not gonna fall apart if you don't. You can eat the whole box of Oreos. I mean, you won't really notice a difference the next day. And you will wrongly conclude that bad habits, if they're small enough, really don't make that much of a difference. And we miss out on this truth. Our life is the sum total of all the small decisions that we make. Again, James Clear in his book, Atomic Habits, he says, the cost of your good habits are in the present. The cost of your bad habits are in the future. What does he mean by that? Well, I've talked to people who have done things sexually, whether they were single or married, outside the context of marriage. And let's just be honest, it felt good in the moment. It felt really good. They got a reward on the front end, but oftentimes a day later, a week later, a year later, they look back and it cost them something. And they go, I wish I wouldn't have done that. The opposite is true for your good habits. They cost you on the front end. Nobody wants to have a salad for lunch instead of cake. No, nobody wants to go get up early in the morning and go to work. Nobody wants to exercise. They cost you, but in the future, they reward you. Clear goes on to say this. He says, as a general rule, the more immediate the pleasure you get from an action, the more strongly you should question whether it aligns with your long-term goals. Now, not all habits are created equal. In fact, some habits are known as keystone habits. A keystone habit is a habit that allows you to start other good habits. So family dinners are a known keystone habit. Students who have family dinners, they are shown to have better emotional control and they perform better in school. I mean, I know we're all busy and we're racing out to different things, but making time for a family dinner 2 to 3 times a week, at least, predictive for a kid's future. Reading the Bible, keystone habit. I mean, it's hard to come into work and just sin all over everybody when you've been listening to the Bible on your YouVersion app on the ride in. I can tell when I haven't been reading the Bible. I can just feel it. I'm more stressed, I'm more fearful, I'm more anxious. It's a keystone habit. Going to church is a keystone habit. They've done studies over a 21-year period of time, and they found that people who went to church were 13% less likely to die than those who don't. I'm not making that up. USA Today picked it up. They said, going to church is the wonder drug. T.M. Lerman, who's a professor of anthropology at Stanford, he said, going to church is good for you. People who come report a higher level of mental health. They have a higher level of happiness. They even report a better sex life in marriage. Right now, husbands all across America are like, honey, get in the car. We're going to church. You don't want to go to church in like 5 years. Just get in the car. It's true for students as well. Students who attend church, I mean, the studies show they smoke less, they abuse drugs less, they abuse alcohol less, they commit fewer crimes, they have a higher GPA. I'm telling you, if you're a parent, you ought to move heaven and earth to have your kids in church. It's that predictive. And don't wait till they're 17 and their life is a train wreck and falling apart, and now you're trying to convince them to come. Start young so it's a habit. In the Old Testament, there was a man named Zerubbabel who was trying to rebuild the temple, but he was only able to get a start. And God sent this prophet Zechariah to speak to him and to say some words that I believe that God may want to say to you today. Here's what he said. He said, do not despise these small beginnings. One of the phrases I use to myself is, hey, something's better than nothing. It's just a little bit, I only had 15 minutes to do that, but something's better than nothing. It's do not despise the small beginning. For the Lord rejoices to see the work begin. What do you need to begin? What is it that you just need to start? The Bible has 1,189 chapters in it. If you read 1 chapter a day, you have read through the Bible in 3 years. If you start that at the age of 21, by the time you're 50, you'll have read the Bible 10 times. Some days it's gonna be inspiring and thought-provoking. It's gonna be like God is speaking right to you. Other days it's gonna feel tedious and you're gonna wonder, why am I even doing this? But that one simple habit will make you a wiser person. It will give you a wisdom that no seminar or conference could give you. It will give you a wisdom that will put you far ahead of your peers. In fact, if I could for just a moment speak to those of you who are middle school, high school, college age, young adults. I'm in my 40s, so that probably seems pretty old to you, but I realized this week that some of the best habits in my life that I benefit from today, I started when I was between the ages of 12 and 24. If you can't obey your parents now, what makes you think you're gonna be able to obey your boss or God someday? If you can't put your phone on airplane mode now and get your homework done, what makes you think you're gonna have the work ethic to be hired 10 years from now? I mean, just think about this with me. You know this is true. Think about 2 different teenagers or 2 different young adults. One of them parties on the weekend, hangs out with people who don't care about God. They never read the Bible, come to church, if they can, but hardly ever. Slack on their homework, don't listen to their parents. Do you think they're gonna have a better future? Or do you think the one who says, I'm gonna surround myself with godly people. I'm going to work hard. I'm gonna have goals. I'm gonna pursue those. I'm gonna listen to my parents, read the Bible. Which one do you think has a brighter future? I mean, you know the answer to that question, but you gotta start. Don't wait till next weekend or the week after. Start right now. In fact, let me ask all of us, what is it that you just need to start? Pick one habit, not 2 or 3, just start with one. What is one habit that you need to start this week? Here's the third way that you can develop healthy habits in your life, and it's very simple. You have to eliminate bad habits. So up here with me, I have a board with a nail in it, and I'm about the least handy person you've ever met in your entire life. So this could go really bad, okay? Just wait for this. But sometimes when you're working, you've got a nail in a log. One of the best ways to get the nail out of the piece of wood is to pound it out with another nail. And the same is true for your habits. Sometimes the best way to get rid of a bad habit is to replace it with a good one. You keep the same trigger or cue. So, hey, when I'm stressed, I tend to eat bad, and then I feel better because of it. You keep the trigger, stress. You keep a reward, feeling better, but you replace that habit in the middle with something that's healthier. Charles Duhigg, who's written a lot on habits, he says this. He says, you can't extinguish a bad habit. Many of us, that's what we try to do. We try to get rid of it. He says, you can only change it or replace it. My son had a habit of eating chocolate chips out of the bag. We had this huge bag of Costco chocolate chips, and he would go into the pantry and just, grab handfuls throughout the day. And then on his own, without me saying anything to him about it, he decided to take that bag of chocolate chips and he put it on the top shelf of the pantry where he couldn't reach it. Because he had some goals for basketball and athleticism, and he realized that wasn't gonna help him get there. And I wanna ask you today, what do you need to put out of reach? What bad habit in your life do you need to go home and say, you know what, I'm gonna be intentional. I'm just gonna make this really hard and I'm gonna put it out of reach. Maybe for you, it's your alcohol. And you go home and you throw out that secret stash and you tell someone, hey, hold me accountable, I'm not going and buying more. It's getting out of control in my life, I'm putting it out of reach. For some of you, maybe it's an app on your phone. And you've been spending so much time on that app and it's been wasting so much time, you say, you know what, I'm just gonna get rid of that app for a period of time. I'm not gonna have internet access. It works for other people, it doesn't work for me. What is it that you need to intentionally put out of reach? This week, here's my challenge to you. Pick one habit in your life that you want to establish, one healthy habit. And to help you do this, we've got a thing where you can text the word future to 75787 or log on to eaglebrookchurch.com/futureself. And when you do that, you're gonna write a letter to yourself 6 months from now. We're not gonna look at the letter, we're not gonna read the letter, but it's gonna be sent to you automatically in 6 months. So you write the letter out, and in 6 months you receive it. And what if in 6 months, you look back and you go, I've been sober for 6 months. By God's power, by God's grace, I was able to replace that habit in my life. Maybe in 6 months from now, you look back and you go, my relationship with my son, my relationship with my daughter, it's so much better than it was 6 months ago. And I'm so grateful that I established some habits of spending time with them. And I'm so grateful to myself 6 months ago. What do you want to say to yourself 6 months from now? What do you want to be doing 6 months from now? Take a moment, write that out, and we'll send it to you. And I hope it's a moment for you to go, Lord, thank you. And then think through how you want to thank your future self again. Let's pray together as we close. Lord, I pray for anyone here who has something in their life that they don't want to do, but they keep doing it. And God, there's so much shame and there's so much guilt and there's a sense of failure. God, I pray that your grace and your mercy would overcome that today, and that we would start. Not by our own power and strength, but by your power, God, your strength. We're asking you right now to fill us with your Spirit, to give us new desires and new hearts. And God, what is that one habit that we just need to start? What is that one habit that's been hurting our life, and if we could replace it, our future self would be so grateful? God, I pray that you would speak to us about that this week, that you would give us your power and your strength. I pray it all in Jesus' name. Amen. Hey, thanks for being here, everybody. Appreciate it. You can stay seated and wait for people to dismiss you at your campus. If you're watching online, thanks for being with us as well.